Although you do know
All rise for the Pledge of Allegiance.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
This is the Saline City Planning Commission meeting for Wednesday, February 28th. If you're in the audience, we'd ask you to please sign in. Will the recording secretary please call the roll?
Young.
Here?
Carroll.
Here.
Bosdick.
Here.
Marl.
Here.
Gearba.
Here.
Cole.
Here.
Heft.
Here.
Troika.
Here.
Staff present tonight are City Planner Auerbach, Community Development Director Harrington, and Recording Secretary Katnick. For the first motion, I would like to amend the agenda to include public comment under new business item 24-04.
I'd second that motion, Madam Chair, but I'd also like to add a very, very brief discussion item, and that's just an introduction of the new member who will hopefully be appointed at our next city council meeting, which will be on this coming Monday.
Okay,
He can do site plan review before mine.
okay, sounds good. Any additional amendments to the agenda? All those in favor? Aye. All those opposed? Motion passes. Is there a motion on the table to approve the meeting minutes of January 24th, 2024 as submitted? Second. All those in favor?
Aye.
All those opposed? Motion passes. Public comments. Under the Open Meetings Act, any citizen may come forward at this time and make comments. The person is requested but not required to state their name and address for the record. Comments will be limited to 3 minutes per person. Does the recording secretary have any comments?
I do for our new business item 2404. Unfortunately, I cannot attend this hearing, but I would like to voice my objection concerning the application from Switchback One LLC. As Mayor Marl knows from my past correspondence, this property is an eyesore. The sidewalks are never cleared in the winter, and the shrubs and bushes continue to be overgrown and block part of the sidewalk. I'm tired of having to reach out every winter so that I can safely walk down the sidewalk. If this new dental office doesn't agree to address these ongoing issues, then I strongly object to their proposal.
Thank you very much. New business item 24-04, application from Bill Bullard of Switchback One LLC for a combined site plan approval to establish a dental office at 601 Drive East, Saline, Michigan 48176, parcel numbers 18-12-31-230-003. In our packet, we have received a memo dated February 21st, 2024 from Community Development Director Harrington, a report dated February 19th, 2024 from City Planner Auerbach, and a report dated February 14th, 2024 from OHM Advisors.
Absolutely. So it is 601 Woodland Drive. It is action item 2404, a combined site plan for comprehensive dentistry. The current property is located in the northwest corner of the intersection of Woodland and Maple Road. It's south of the Maplewood Farms development. It's a 9,380 square foot building located on a 6.4 acre parcel. It is the former home to the local UAW's chapters offices and served as their hall for meetings. It is zoned OS for office service. The request is a combined site plan, so the Planning Commission approves or denies a formalized site plan based on zoning requirements, general appearance, engineering reviews, and specific concept. If approved, the applicant must make changes based on the conditions the Planning Commission sets, as well as modifications in the event of conflicts with the state building code or now during our construction review process. If any proposed change after an approval is found to be material, the applicant will be required to request a site plan amendment from the Planning Commission. So the proposal is to modify the existing structure to serve as a dental office, which is a by right use in the OS Office Service District. They're proposing to beautify the exterior of the structure, place new plantings, reseal, and stripe the parking lot. So this is taken from their landscape page, but it's just kind of the general layout. They're not proposing to expand or contract the existing building, but making otherwise exterior site improvements, as I mentioned. Here are some of the proposed architectural renderings of their facades. And then here's the floor plan submitted. It's a rather large dental office, as you'll see. So the Planning Commission reviews the preliminary and final site plans, or in this case, the combination of those two, and approves them with or without conditions, or denies the application based on the purposes, objectives, and requirements of the City of Saline ordinances and their standard specification, looking at items like area, width, height, and setbacks, natural resources that may be impacted, building location, site arrangement, parking and loading, site access and circulation, safety paths, landscaping, lighting, signs, floor plan and elevation, engineering considerations. So in our review of this proposal, we've identified the following. So for area, width, height, and setbacks, there's a minor discrepancy on the plan that the applicant needs to correct. It's the corner lot width requirement. For parking and loading, the applicant should confirm the number of spaces, 188 is accurate. There were some minor discrepancies listed throughout the plan if it was 188, 187, or 186. So again, pretty minor. The applicant must provide additional information about peak hour occupancy to demonstrate needed parking. The Planning Commission will ultimately need to determine if the proposed overage in parking spaces is appropriate. For their building and our parking requirements, about 59 spaces are required, about 188 are proposed. There are about 188 that currently exist. For landscaping, the applicant should clarify and correct the minor discrepancies between the plantings identified and plan notes on sheet L100, which is the landscaping sheet. Again, there is just some minor differences in the number of plantings listed in the notes versus what was shown on the plan itself. The applicant must confirm that the plantings along the northern line that front that Maplewood Homes development, Maple Ridge Farms, it's one of the maple ones, there's a lot of maple ones in the city, meet the minimum 80% opacity standard. And the Planning Commission should consider whether additional plantings must be provided along the northwest parking lot perimeter, and I'll show you a visual of what that looks like in a minute here. For floor plan and elevations, the Planning Commission must determine whether the architectural plans take the appearance of a residential building in order to preserve the general character of the residential neighborhood, which is specifically mentioned in the intent of the office service district. For engineering and fire considerations, the items identified by OHM in their submitted report to the city primarily relate to calculations on the plans themselves and not material changes to the site. There are a couple items listed there in OHM's report related to stormwater. Again, it has to do with calculations more than a concern about impervious surfaces, which Planner Auerbach might have highlighted in his report. There is one exception that would be a pedestrian pathway from the sidewalk. At talks with OHM and the applicant's architect, they've already agreed to place such a path, but if the Planning Commission, for whatever reason, does not want that path to be placed, now is the time to speak about that. And then lastly, OHM raised a concern about the location of fire hydrants, their radius to the building. This was not of concern when I brought the issue to the fire chief, who is comfortable with the project moving forward as is. So it is with that, my recommendations, provided that the Planning Commission feel that the parking overage is appropriate, to move to approve the combined site plan application for comprehensive dentistry with the following listed conditions. I'm only going to read the first 5 because there are a lot of these more minor ones that relate to labeling and calculations. So I'll show those on the next slide, but I won't read them all. So to provide a pedestrian accessible route from the public sidewalk to the building entrance, as the applicant has already agreed to do. To allow city staff adequate room to maintain the existing sanitary sewer and to comply with the city's current engineering standards. The property owner should provide a 10-foot sanitary sewer easement along the portion of the lot abutting Maple Road. The corner lot width requirement on the plan must be corrected. They must confirm the number of parking spots is accurate and shown correctly on the site plan. And then the applicant should provide additional information related to parking considerations, such as the number of staff and patients they expect to be on site during peak hours to demonstrate how much parking they need. And then again, this is that list of additional considerations that have mostly to do, in fact, all to do with labeling and calculations on the plan. And then our very standard ones, 15 through 18, they're responsible for pulling all building, trade, and necessary permits, as well as county permits in the case of soil erosion. The approval is valid for 365 days and has no effect if the applicant does not pull a building permit within that time frame. Any items identified by the building department in the review shall be corrected before beginning construction, and then address the 4 items for construction review called out by OHM in their report before entering the construction review process. I'm going to ignore that slide. So the items that the Planning Commission should have the applicant address is the applicant's proposed parking overage appropriate? Staff believes that the applicant likely knows best about their parking situation. The applicant should confirm staffing issues or parking and patient issues, but the staff has no concerns as the site meets our stormwater standards. They're proposing a reduction in impervious surfaces already, but perhaps an additional reduction may be necessary if the applicant chooses to expand later to account for the fact that they are technically overparked as is. Per a request by Planning Commissioner Gearbaugh, I looked at 3 other dental offices in the city of Saline. So Powell and Udris has 42 spaces and is about a 2,929 square foot facility. Singleton Dental Practice has about 38 spaces and about a 3,200 square foot facility. And then Kelly Orthodontics, excuse me if I spelled that word wrong, is 48 spaces and 4,000 square feet. And just as we can see here, the proposal is 188 spaces for a 9,380 square foot facility, plus or minus some room for storage, similar to the rest of those. The second consideration is should the additional plantings and screenings be provided along the northwest parking lot perimeter. It currently opens to undeveloped land internal to the parcel and facing an undeveloped land owned by the adjacent institutional user, the Church of Latter-day Saints. The screenings exist between the residential development to the north, as previously mentioned. The Planning Commission should use their discretion here. Plantings may have to be removed later if the applicant expands in that direction. And this would be the discrepancy there. So as you can see on the right is their proposed landscaping plan that does not show plantings along that northwestern end. And then I've circled similarly where that looks like on an aerial. And then finally, do the proposed plans meet the design intent of the office service district to have a residential character effectively? And staff believes that the proposal does meet that intent and notably brings the property closer into conformity with that intent than the current condition. So again, I would leave it for the recommendation to approve the combined site plan application for comprehensive dentistry with the following 18 conditions.
Great, thank you. Senator Auerbach, do you have anything additional to add?
No additional comments. I think Mr. Harrington covered it.
Is there a motion on the table to acknowledge the receipt of the memos before we open it up to questions?
I'll move to acknowledge receipt of the memos from February the 21st, 19th, and 14th.
All those,
Second.
great. All those in favor?
Aye.
I was going to say, yes, sorry.
These are for Planner Auerbach. There's 2 items on your report. One is regarding signs, and then the other one, floor plans and elevations. It says items to be addressed, the planning commission must determine whether the provided architectural plans meet the intent of section 4.04. Can you explain more on that?
Yes, the ordinance just simply states that architectural plans need to come to the commission for approval. And there's no specific design considerations, but just the commission will need to find that the design meets the general character of the residential neighborhood. This is meant to be a transitional commercial district that is adjacent to residential. So there's nothing more specific than that. It's just acknowledging that it's give some leeway over selection of materials to make that choice on your end.
I just want to make sure there wasn't anything specific. And then the other with the signs, and this may be for Mr. Harrington, it says something about the applicant must obtain zoning compliance approval for the proposed signs. I strongly don't support any kind of variance for signs.
Right, the applicant didn't propose any signs in their submittal, so at this time, it would just have to meet the zoning standards. I've already been in contact with a contractor representing the client on their signs, so.
That's it for me. Thank you.
It was Dan Carroll. Do we have additional questions for Mr. Harrington or Planner Auerbach? Sorry, I'm out of practice.
I had one question. So
Yes.
there was some discussion of screening along the northwest side of the parking lot. Is there a reason why there wouldn't be screening just along the western boundary?
It's not a conflicting user, I don't believe.
Well, the
Actually, it might be because it's residential.
it is residential, and that's the primary concern, or why we raised the question as to whether it is necessary to provide more screening. There is existing vegetation along the lot line. It's not clear if, to the extent that there are any gaps, there may not be. The slope is that northern lot line is at a slightly higher elevation from the parking lot. We're just calling out because it's hard to say for certain based on the information provided in the plan, but there is the potential that vehicles parked there could be shining into backyards.
Okay, thank you.
I do have a question on comment number 7 on OHM's memo about the storage area for the cumulative volume for basically, the stormwater management is being calculated within the parking lot, and it can't be credited because it's on impervious surface. Is there enough stormwater management on the plan to account for the impervious surface that's there?
Yes, I asked the OHM engineers about this, and they said that there is not a material stormwater consideration that they believe that is adequate. The applicant's actually reducing the impervious surfaces on site.
Okay, thank you. Additional questions or comments?
Just one other.
Yes.
When you mentioned reducing the impervious surface, I guess I didn't really understand when looking at the drawing. What are they going to be removing out of this?
I believe it's in the front.
It's the
That was something
horseshoe.
I didn't
Oh.
call out. As the impervious surface, as far as the extent of our review, seems to be the same. If there's slight, the OHM may have identified some slight changes, but generally, the parking lot's staying as is.
That's what I just wanted to clarify. I thought maybe they were reducing that, which I would strongly support.
I believe there is a slight reduction. I would have to close this to open the other document, which is the one fault to the airtame system, so.
On plan sheet C201, there's the horseshoe that's like the general driveway in front of the front door. That's being removed.
Oh, okay. I was thinking more. Thank you.
And then I guess just a question to go along with the parking, whether it be 188, 87, or 86. And I'm sure the applicant will talk about it, but would it be, would we have reason to say to remove some of the spots, especially if it's being sealed and then restriped, or is that not something that would be permissible, applicable?
Would think that if you were, so you have the, some authority to require that. The most pressing scenario where that might be necessary is if there was in fact some kind of stormwater management issue. Since it's a change of use, fewer spaces are required, you do have some authority to require a reduction. However, since that does not seem to be the case, then you would have to point to some other ordinance standard as a basis for why the reduction would be needed, which is, could be something, but the stormwater issue was the priority.
Okay. Additional questions or comments? Yes.
So as you mentioned stormwater, I know this is one of the properties that does not have its own detention pond on it. So this is all going into the city's existing storage.
I would have to ask the engineer about it. I think a lot of it's also staying on site too, because a lot of it is unpaved.
Yes.
One minor question. It's highlighted on the front page of the comprehensive site plan report. Is the small outbuilding being preserved?
Yes.
Yes.
Were there any plans to update that outbuilding?
Not shown on the plans themselves, but you could ask the applicant about that.
We previously had a motion to acknowledge the memos. Does your motion still stand?
Yes, ma'am.
Mr. Carroll?
Yes.
Okay. All those in favor?
Aye.
All those opposed? Motion passes. We have the applicant developer comments, limited to 10 minutes, if you'd like to come up and speak.
Hi, I'm Colin Bullard, Dr. Colin Bullard. I'm a dentist, and this is
Could you please make sure that the microphone?
Yeah, make sure the green light is illuminated at the base there.
Thank you.
There you go.
Is that better?
Yes.
Okay. My name is Dr. Colleen Bullard, and this is my husband, Bill. And I started a dental practice in Ypsilanti almost 20 years ago, and it's grown from a three-op to 12-op, multi-doctor. But we live in the Saline community, and our kids grew up in the Saline community. And my parents live in the Saline community, and I've driven past that UAW hall for 20 years. And I thought, if that ever went for sale, that'd be a really cool place to start a dental practice in this community. So when it happened this summer, and that's kind of where this all came about. So we're growing so much in Ypsilanti, but we want to give back to the community that gave us so much. So that's what I have to say.
Yeah, I don't think I can add a whole lot to the emotional side of the project, at least. Like she said, this is sort of a dream for us to do this again in our own community. We live just in Stonebridge, right down the road. So it's hard to believe anyone would care more about how this looks and how this comes out than us. It's part of our legacy. This is our community too. And so this is, like, again, this is a passion and a dream for us, not just plunk down another one for business growth. Like that is also the case, but this is really, like I said, like a dream for us. So we care very much too about how this turns out. So I can remember a few of the questions, or you can fire away at us. But so that, like I said, this is a dream for us.
Any questions?
So the intent is to preserve that outbuilding in the rear of the property?
Yes.
And yes, it needs
It needs updates.
Yeah, I didn't want to be rude or sound pejorative,
No,
but
it's,
it's pretty shabby.
Yeah.
The roof is pretty new, and the structure of it is good, but it looks rough on the outside. So I think just some siding and some paint, I think it is going to be great. Maybe a window, but even as big as this practice is, we know how valuable storage is. We're running out of storage space in our current practice, so that's why we plan to preserve it. But yes, we care very much about how things look and presentation. So yeah, we plan to make it look good.
From the floor plan, it looks like a gigantic practice. Can you please talk to us about your peak hour of patients and all the parking that is here and
Yeah.
we've been discussing?
Well, we plan to be open, our current practice is open 7 to 7 Monday through Thursday and 7 to 5 on Friday. So we're a unique dental practice because we want to be open when people, before they go to work and when they get out of work. So there's several hours in the middle of the day that there could be, how many providers?
I think we ended up putting it on at least one of the plans, but
So the peak is like from 9 till 4. So we're open 12 hours, 13 hours actually, or 13 hours because we get there before patients start. So peak is all the time. So I don't know how to answer that.
yeah. So I think the way we do 2 shifts, so most people don't work the whole time, and so there's an overlap in the middle. Thank you.
Okay, thank you very much.
So there's an overlap in the middle when there's even more, when essentially every op is full, hopefully, on a good day. And there's providers and all the support staff there. Sorry, my glasses are stuck in my pocket.
Okay, 35 patients.
So, yeah, 35 staff members, 20 patients in the treatment rooms, and 15 patients in the waiting room for a total of 70 occupants is sort of what we were thinking when this is full and fully bustling. The reason it's so big, honestly, is we keep outgrowing our current space and having to keep expanding and expanding. Everyone builds them too small, and so it really stifles growth. And we know this isn't going to be full and busy on day one, but that's why it's so big. We keep running out of space in our current practice and keep having to expand, and we decided to plan for the growth up front.
The 35 staff include the dental providers, the actual practitioners?
Yes, sir.
Additional questions?
Yeah, when do you expect to reach your capacity? How many years?
So I'm trying to remember what the forecast was I put in for the bank. I wish I'd have brought that with me. I think probably 5 to 6 years would be amazing. We tend to grow. We've been tending to add about $1 million in revenue a year when we have the capacity to grow that way, and that's about 1 doctor and two hygienists, I would say. And our growth plan is to add that level, so that'd be 4 operatories per year. So that's how we kind of look at the growth.
Is there anything that you can add about the landscape not being provided on the northwest corner that we had discussed?
Do you have it? We brought our civil engineering friend with us.
Great, thank you.
Who might be better at helping us with that.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Good evening, Commissioners. My name is Wade Lehman, and I'm with the Civil Design Team, Naderveld. So the reason for there not being any, or for the bulk of the new proposed planting, screening, those portions of the parking lot, the existing parking lot from the right-of-way, the conflicting land use buffer that is required against the residential is about, I believe meets the requirements of 80% opacity right now in the dormant season, and during the growing season will be closer to 100%. It's a mixture of mature evergreen and deciduous trees with also some shrub and ornamental trees in there as well. So for that north side of the parking lot, the existing vegetation, and also as Mr. Albeck mentioned, the slope raises slightly towards the residential area, and so the intent would be that with the combined slope and the existing vegetation, that any headlights would be blocked by those existing conditions.
Can you identify where the pedestrian path from the Woodland or Maple sidewalk is to come to the parcel? I didn't see it on the plans.
Sure, we.
Right, I could add, that was a condition that was added. It's not currently shown on the
Okay, I
plans.
didn't know if that, could you tell us where it would be?
Yep, it would be on the west side of the driveway off of Woodland, entering the site from the existing sidewalk, and then it would sort of cross between the sort of front parking lot and the rear / side parking lots. I mean, I have some plans that include those because we have made those revisions, but they were not in time for tonight's agenda. And I guess if I could just speak to some of the questions that have been brought up about the parking. You know, this site, as you've heard from the applicant, has sort of been a dream project for them. And with any development, I think this being a redevelopment of an existing use, an existing structure and parking lot, you know, has a lot of benefits to them being able to pull this off. And it's not that we're necessarily proposing to add all this additional parking, it's just an existing condition. And in reviewing the city ordinance, there was no maximum parking required. And so being a by right project, you know, they've done economic research into what it would be to remove the parking lot, and it made more fiscal sense to provide the additional parking trees, to provide the additional site lighting, and resurface the existing parking lot rather than to remove it. And there's also environmental benefits in that too, with the process of, you know, taking that material away, having to fill it, that needs to go to a landfill. So it's really sort of the best way to sort of redevelop an existing site into a new use. So with the parking lot and the new use, bringing all the to bring the site up to current standards, we're adding 47 additional trees to the property. And those are 6 different species. They're all native plants to Southeast Michigan. And as it was mentioned earlier, the stormwater first flush will be maintained in the existing facilities. We are going to be adding two new structures to control the rate of the outlet. So currently there's no slowing the water down. Those will be installed so that water is retained on site for longer. What other questions were there? Yeah, well, we've moved forward with plans already based on city comment, and we've addressed, quite a few of them and with a response letter. So if there's any other questions about the site plans themselves, I'm happy to answer.
Thank you. Questions? Any questions? Thank you very much.
Thanks. And I put the architecture renderings up there again, just based on the comment from Commissioner Gerbach, and, just to show that there's a variety of materials and a lot of window glazing units. So I think it would meet the intent of the residential sort of commercial district boundary. It's not a cinder block building or all one facade with no windows. It's a pretty nice looking structure.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Is there a motion on the table to open the public comment period at 7:31?
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
All those opposed? Seeing no public comment, I would like to make a motion to close the public comment period at 7:32.
Second.
All those in favor? Aye. All those opposed? Okay. Additional questions and comments from planning commissioners? Yes, Mr. Gerbach.
Just with the lighting and such, and Ben, just with the parking lot, when do we require islands? If they were rebuilding this parking lot? I mean, are they just putting a new coating on it and then striping, so they're not rebuilding anything or anything?
Sorry, if it was being built new, then that island per 20 spaces, that 20 space requirement, I believe, would apply.
Okay, so this is, the condition of this parking lot and everything is good enough that it doesn't require any kind of, and has that been inspected? In the past, we've had issues with the parking lot not really being up to code.
It was an item that we investigated when the applicant had a pre-application meeting with the city, and Planner Auerbach is correct there that we can't retroactively require it because it's an existing condition, essentially.
But the condition of the parking lot is good enough that just coating is required, not patching and potholes and.
That is correct. We also have a blight ordinance that prohibits large cracks in parking lots, which we'll talk about here in a minute in the discussion section. So, yes, if it were to become a continuous issue, the city could then enforce the blight ordinance.
Thank you.
I guess I have one more question, Madam Chair, probably for the applicant or his or her representative. Assuming the approval is granted this evening, what is the timeframe for rehabbing the property, and when do you hope to have the business operational? Sure.
Our hope would be that we would start construction in a month. We still have some bank financing to finish, which I think will take 4 weeks or less. And then our contractor is planning to be ready to go after that. And then he thinks 7 months. So we're looking at probably fall, September, October. I never know.
End of the third quarter, beginning of the fourth quarter.
I really hope to be operational for the entire fourth quarter. That's what I'm really hoping for.
I can confirm, too, that the building department has already received permit applications. Obviously, our reviews are always pending planning commission approval, but it's one way we can work to expedite the process for applicants that are trying to get in there a little faster, and also, in this case, expedite the beautification of the city. So.
Yes.
And I mean, we had the one public comment, sidewalk issue is what it is, but the issue, I think there is a tree that's been down for quite a while. Can we address that and some other issues in terms of making sure that those are addressed prior to any, in case this is delayed?
He's referring to a very large limb that's adjacent to the driveway as you enter off of Woodland.
Thank you. I forgot to mention that that was the one removal of an existing tree within the green belt, that we are going to remove that tree and provide a new one for the requirement. So that'll be gone. And then there's, I think, 4 trees along the facade of the building that are just, they're not necessarily requirement trees, but those are being removed, but everything else is to remain.
I would say that generally the code enforcement issues become easier to deal with when there's simply when there's a tenant.
I can attest to the one public comment that one of the large issues with code enforcement on the site has been the long lengths of time it takes before we're able to contact the organization, because it's a nonprofit organization too. It's even sometimes more challenging to compel code enforcement activity to occur.
additional questions or comments?
Oh, just one thing, if we were concerned about the building and making sure that that's brought up to the smaller building, do we want to put that in as a condition?
You could ask the applicants about their plans, if it'll in any way mirror the design of the principal building. But there isn't, really, as long as it is, structurally maintained, there's nothing real specific to require that.
Well, we could put a condition on
That's up to you.
it. I mean, that might satisfy some of the commission members, I believe.
Do you have anything to add for that? About the outbuilding?
I don't have any like architectural plans or any such thing. I mean, honestly, we plan to fix the siding and make it look nice as a storage shed. But yeah, I would.
What we do, if we put on here is to say that the building be repaired and maybe painted.
Yeah, absolutely. I just don't want to promise that it's going to look like that. Absolutely.
As long as it's not shabby and not that pastel pink color.
Fair, fair. Yeah, like I said, I mean, we pull in here, this, like, we really want it to look, we want it to look wow when people walk in and drive in and the inside as well. So we're not going to have, I promise we won't have a shabby shed in the back. So, yeah.
If we want to make sure.
No, that's fair. Yeah. I'm happy to commit to that.
Thank you. Seeing no additional questions or comments, is there a motion on the table to approve, not approve, or approve with conditions the application from Bill Bullard from Switchback One LLC for a combined site plan approval to establish a dental office at 601 Woodland Drive East, Saline, Michigan 48176?
I'll move to approve with conditions, adding number 19, outbuilding will be painted and repaired. Second.
Any additional discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
All those opposed? Motion passes. Looking
Congratulations.
forward to see you in the neighborhood.
Congratulations.
Very good. Thank you for your time.
Thank you.
New business item 24-05, 2023 annual report. We have an annual report from Ms. Katnick here. Is there anything you'd like to add, or should we go to Ben?
It's pretty standard. I think this is a document we're trying to normalize across all of our boards and commissions to make sure that they're getting done. So thank you, Danica, for putting it together. Also, it is Danica's 8th birthday tomorrow, as she is a leap year child. So everyone say happy birthday to Danica.
Thank you. 8, yes.
Is there any discussion with the memo 24-05? Okay, is there a motion on the table to accept with or without amendments to authorize Recording Secretary Katnick to forward the 2023 annual report to Saline City Council?
Second.
Any discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
All those opposed? Motion passes. Discussion item number 1, new commissioner.
Actually, Mr. Gearbock can go first. This is more substantive. Mine is a nice innocuous way to end the meeting.
Mine is just, Ben, I know you've been working on this, but it's a site plan review. I'd like to have some type of either brief report or wherever we are in terms of the issues you're facing and in terms of us being able to comply with our existing site plans, what legal issues you're facing, and what we can expect to be able to start.
Yeah, this is something I've talked to our code enforcement officer about, and I think we've kind of developed a strategy with our most recent mailings. So one was for temporary signs. It was kind of a systematic process that we developed to attack that specific issue, and then we've also developed a process to attack the issue now of abandoned signs or signs that are no longer showing occupied businesses. And I think that that's going to likely be our best way to address a lot of these issues with outdoor storage, with cracked parking at pavements, a lot of businesses on East Michigan Avenue that would apply to that one. And essentially, I think that that's going to be our new way forward. It ensures that we're accurately and fairly enforcing our ordinances across. If there are specific site concerns, such as trees and plantings, that's something that our city attorney has consulted us. That would be the appropriate time to kind of break out that site plan. But breaking out, selective site plans for each individual site or business is sometimes perilous because it comes across as selective enforcement. So we're taking then instead the strategy to choose specific issues that we can see are problems on a number of our sites, send out mailings to all of these businesses all at once. And that way we're ensuring that we're fairly and accurately applying all of our ordinances, especially when it comes to enforcement activities, to all subject properties that perhaps are not following those at the moment.
And in my thinking is it would be helpful for us if you actually had a number of those, because part of my bigger concerns are, one, parking lots, because a number of these have humongous potholes in them. But the other part is the retention ponds, making sure they're up to date and being maintained. I look at the one in front of Bush's where it has a significant amount of cattails and whatever else is growing in there. And how do we actually look at those? Because I know we have a number of those that have been established in the town, but I don't know if we ever actually look at them unless the site actually gets reviewed to make sure that they're functioning on all that. I don't know who reviews that type of thing. But those kind of things, so if you could identify those for us, what you're looking at, because it does sound like a great approach, is to identify specifics. So I think there are some major items that should be applied against all these properties and can be reviewed. And then we get down to the smaller ones when you actually start getting into lighting. One of my biggest controls is Sauk. It's the Sauk Shopping Center. Not only does it have problems with its lighting, but recently the whole parking lot wasn't lit. And so there's things like that are becoming an issue. And like Sauk Trail Court or Sauk Court, they're private lights, but they don't work and they're not been updated. And a number of those type of things that could be potential hazards that are being addressed.
Right, and for those two, I would encourage you to use the Revisi tool as you had with some of those other issues I previously mentioned, because that then gives us, a clear complaint and then a clear violation that we can perhaps follow up on. Like I mentioned, from attorney's advice to pull out specific site plans and to kind of arbitrarily choose some gives the air of selective enforcement unless we really had the ability to establish a systematic process where we're going site by site by site, but under current staffing conditions and current work conditions too. I just think that that's a rather difficult thing for the Community Development Department to achieve at this time, to go site plan by site plan rather than going issue by issue. But if you have specific concerns, it's much easier for staff to follow up on.
So what you'd like is to give you a list of specific things such as detention ponds, lighting.
So those specifically, like I said, if there are large batch code issues, we're already working on what's coming next after this one, but we have to cycle it through because we only have one code enforcement officer and there are a number of properties, and it takes a minute to get folks into compliance, in addition to some more real life safety issues that occur with code enforcement that we're currently following up on as well, primarily related to the rental.
I just wanted to understand what the plan would be going forward, because I know the issue right now is rental inspections, especially most I would say, the most dangerous situations that we currently have. So addressing those is priority over everything.
All I would add to Mr. Harrington's comments, I think he covered all the considerations, of which there are many when it comes to code enforcement. I think it certainly does take a matter of picking priorities in some sense, because a single code enforcement effort can involve a lot of staff time just unto itself, between preparing all the notices involved, following up with property owners, and then usually, as I would imagine the city does, trying to work with property owners to encourage gradual compliance and having to go out and do those, or whatever the city's time frame is, 2-week inspections. So even just one enforcement itself takes a lot of time. If you initiate a broader effort, that's potentially a whole lot of staff time to consider. So it's important to be strategic about it. The stormwater issue itself, if that was something that the city wanted to prioritize, it would take looking at trying to identify which storm facilities are public and private. Typically, they're private, and it would be a matter of looking at the condominium documents, which should have maintenance plans in them. And in my experience, one effort I've seen is a public works department going out and doing sort of a proactive coaching effort to kind of educate responsible parties about what their annual maintenance plan should involve and kind of coax them to do it that way. But that would be, if the city wanted to pick that particular issue as an effort and come up with a plan to do it citywide.
I guess for me, it's understanding we would make all these requirements of everybody and these type of things, and yet we don't look at them again until maybe it fails 20, 30, 40 years later, and being more proactive, because as we know, our city's trying to move towards that approach than what we've done in the past, where maintenance is key, not replacement. So sounds like a bigger discussion for us at council.
Step one is to remove the Headley Amendment, and then we can grow our tax base, so.
Yeah, I don't think that one's going to fly.
It's worth a shot, you know.
Just some good news that hopefully at Monday night's city council meeting, we will fill the last remaining vacancy on the planning commission. Jessica Lafort has volunteered, and I have moved forward with her nomination to fill Bill Beardsley's vacancy on this body. She is the former HOA president for Huntington Woods Phase 1. She's been a member of our code review committee for several years, and she recently served on our charter review task force. She's an attorney she's married with 2 small kids in the Saline community. So I think she will be a great addition to this body. And again, I'm hopeful that her appointment is approved on Monday evening and that she can begin serving and participating on March the 13th.
All right, no absences tonight. Is there a motion on the table to adjourn at 7:45? All those in favor? Aye. All those opposed? Motion passes. Thank you very much.